Was poppin', was poppin', was poppin'. Welcome, Nicky and Moose. I'm Nicky. That's Moose. What's up, Moose?
What up, y'all?
And on this episode, it is time to take out the whiteboard. I know Moose just got really excited about that, but we're finally strategizing about the new year, the new quarter, the new season. This will be the only strategy that you're going to need to hear to get your brand, your business right for the new year. Now, of course, we're going to talk about Netflix and the lessons that we learned from Leave the World Behind and the new Kevin Hart, Chris Rock special. And then new question of the week, automation versus personal touch. What are our answers? What is your answer? But what is our answers? Moose, how we feel about this episode?
Man, I noticed the last month, but this might be one of my favorite ones because we're talking about planning. And there's nothing that makes me more excited when I talk about whiteboards and planning. So long story short, make sure y'all watch this to the end.
Let's get into this intro.
Two kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force, but more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
And of course, this episode is powered by Ecamm Live, the #1 all-in-one streaming platform that not only allows you to stream on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, all the social media platforms, but it's amazing for pre-recorded videos as well, just for like your podcast, like how we're doing it, your courses, content, whatever you want to do. And plus, it makes you look fire on Zoom and Google Meetings. And we're giving away 14 days for free if you go to www.nickyandmoose.com/ecamm, that's ECAMM, for your 14-day trial. Moose, how we feeling?
Shout out to Ecamm, man. Feeling pretty good. I was on site doing some whiteboarding and strategic planning today, so you know that's a big fun factor and a hobby of mine. So yeah, that's always a good time to get that in. But man, I had the craziest thing happen to me. And I talked to you about it just briefly after the after show. Not after the after show, it was after the live. But I was on the plane watching Leave the World Behind. It's a movie on Netflix, right? So I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it, but it's the first time I've ever watched a movie on 1.25 speed. Now, you know, I always joke about I'll send you like audio recordings or screen recordings of me listening to an audio book on like 1.75. So that is standard, but never in a movie, just because I wanted to get to the meat and potatoes of what's really happening. But essentially, the movie is about a family that rents an Airbnb to break away from the madness of the city. The movie is positioned, or it takes place in New York City. So they go, I guess, up in Long Island somewhere, rent a beautiful house just to get away for the weekend. And some strange things begin to happen. So you guys got to watch it to really make sense of it. But it's ironic because in one of the scenes, I'll at least share at least one of them. You heard about Tesla having to pull almost all their cars off the road for autopilot. All right. In one of the scenes in that movie, sure enough, it's a bunch of cars as they're trying to escape, a bunch of cars blocking the roads. All of them are white Teslas. It's the only part of the movie I'll give away. All of them are white Teslas. Next thing you know, they're brand new Teslas. Then they realize that the autopilot driving feature, these cars are driving themselves and just crashing to this one location. Like they're all going to this one location. So the timing of it, I'm like, yo, hold on. This movie comes out. It's like #1 on Netflix, by the way, right now. It's the #1 trending movie on Netflix. This is what's happening in the movie. A couple weeks later, Tesla literally has to pull their cars off the road to service this very feature. So I was like, okay, hold on. There's some things happening here that you got to look a little closer at. But crazy movie, man. But essentially, the lesson that I walked away with, because at the end, that's where the big aha gets revealed, is that with us so openly giving so much of our data and our information online, I think it's time to also start thinking a little bit about data protection and cybersecurity. Like, I don't know, I know that's a real geeky topic and very few people talk about it, but watching that movie, and there was also a podcast episode with Patrick Bet-David where he was talking about something similar. Like, he's like, I don't know when, but this is one of those things that I expect to actually happen in real life. And I was like, oh yeah, nah, I can't get caught off guard with one of them situations. It was bad enough that I was watching this movie on the plane. And for those of you who end up watching it, you'll see why it wasn't a good choice for me to watch the movie while I was on the plane. But sure enough, that's my thing, man. I'm like, yo, I got to look a little closer into this data privacy, cybersecurity, protecting my, information on the web or something in the event like something like that happens. Because, we're starting to get some serious hints in movies around what could be the downfall of too much tech and data and AI and all this stuff. So, yeah, I know it's not the fun, business lesson, but definitely something to consider.
So your lesson is don't get a Tesla and don't trust in computers driving you around.
Well, not so much that one. That just happened to be a very interesting coincidence.
Okay.
Like I was like, oh, so that's what happens in the movie, but a couple weeks later, this is what happened in the real world.
Right.
That's very interesting. That was a very interesting, timely coincidence. But the data, because it was essentially a cyber attack that unloaded the whole thing. Like the whole movie is like that's what they find out at the very. Sorry, y'all. I hope just skip this part if you're listening and you intend to watch the movie and you haven't already saw it. Yeah. So I'm like, I know I've heard of data protection, cybersecurity. I've heard about those to be really important things, but for like big companies and all that, not for everyday people who are just engaging with these platforms and doing their thing. So now I'm saying to myself, oh yeah, nah. I'm gonna look into that in 2024. I gotta get something, some sort of basic data privacy, cybersecurity metric in place. Yeah.
That's funny. That's
leave the world behind.
Listen, low key. Fun fact: I had a bachelor's in cybersecurity, so I already understand all that. So.
Wow. Okay. Good.
A little small.
Good.
A little small. Fun
Good.
fact.
That is a very important fact. It's a very important fact. Yeah.
But I think for me, I was also on Netflix. I went more of a funnier route. What I thought was going to be funny, which is the Kevin Hart and the Chris Rock special, the headliner one. And I really thought I was going to watch literally a comedy special, and it was nothing like that, which is cool because I actually like more of behind the scenes. I just thought it was going to be behind the scenes and then a bit of the actual special. Like maybe I'm spoiled because of the Beyonce movie where it was like behind the scenes and then the concert. So I was thinking behind the scenes and some jokes. But it was just really more of kind of like a documentary style. So I still got lessons from it. So first one is, of course, the importance of collaboration. Two major comedians in the game, and they did a headliner in Madison Square Garden. We just can't pass by that. It's cool how the brother of Chris Rock actually referred them both as like Jordan and Kobe, and how Chris Rock clearly is looked at as Jordan, but with Kevin Hart never felt like he was too small or too big to ask questions. They actually reference when Kobe and Jordan were on the court together, And Kobe was asking questions even in the middle of the game on some, how'd you did that kind of spin move? And Jordan was actually giving the game even during the whole situation while they're facing each other. And this is what Kevin Hart did with Chris Rock. No matter where he was, he asked questions. They understood they have two different styles, and it's not really about competing. It's really about how do we work together to give some of the best experience to our audience. And I thought that was really powerful. They also brought up the Kings of Comedy, and they had Cedric the Entertainer and D.L. Hughley, and kind of breaking down why they collaborated and how together they broke records, and they couldn't necessarily do that by themselves in that, in that time span. I do believe, because some people will be like, you're going to tell me that I can't do it by myself? No, I'm just trying to cut down the time frame, right? Trying to cut down the time frame. So that part was really dope to see. One random lesson that I don't know if you caught on to, never go to a meeting hungry. That was a random lesson that Chris Rock gave to Kevin Hart, where if you're going to a meeting, your hangry self should never show up to an actual meeting. It's even if it's one of those meetings that you got to sit and eat anyways, right? Kind of a luncheon situation. Have an appetizer, have some bread. Never go in hungry, which I thought was really dope because, you could say he said, clearly there's some words that he said, but you could say some dumb stuff if you go into a meeting hangry. So that was a random lesson that I was like, man, I never even thought about that. Okay, always have something before a meeting. Good. Even if it's virtual, people, never go to a meeting hangry, all right? And then something that stood out to me was pretty much closer to the end, where Chris Rock kind of said, like, yo, I can't go into the Hall of Fame if I'm still playing. Yeah. On him still, like, even though people see him as the GOAT, that literally Kevin Hart gave him a GOAT. Y'all probably seen the picture. Isaiah will probably put it up with Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, and Dave Chappelle. And he was still like, you've never seen a player go into the Hall of Fame and still playing. I'm still playing, and I'm still good at it. And really understanding, I think that's more of a self-awareness side of it, where you will know if you're kind of declining and when to kind of bow out. He still sees himself as a prime player and still going and putting up shots. And it's true, because he's still selling out. He's still very seeked out. He's still having specials till this day, and he's been in the game for years. This one is a really good look back at both of their lives, because it goes all the way back to when Chris Rock started and his start, and how he met up with Eddie Murphy and flew out to LA, and that was, he did everything from In Living Color to Saturday Night Live, and just his journey of how it happened, and for him to be like, I'm still playing. A cool part, I don't know if you noticed this one, was with Chris Rock, how he didn't narrow down, and this goes into the niche topic of, he didn't narrow down who he was speaking to. The only thing he really narrowed down at a certain point was that he was speaking to New Yorkers. Wasn't speaking to black and brown New Yorkers. Not only speaking to white New Yorkers, he was speaking to just New Yorkers, because he had home advantage. He was from New York, but there was a joke where he was saying, and of course I'm paraphrasing and I'm not making it funny, but the point of, yo, I'm dangerous because I can say everything the white people said, but I can also talk to my black people that the white people can't even touch, right? And understanding that crossover and not being too one-sided or the other sided, because he can understand that, I'm trying to get people, period. No race, no ethnicity, nothing like that, just people. And by doing so, you will see a diverse audience in his crowd. You will see all different types of ethnicities and backgrounds, and it's amazing to see where some people, even D.L. Hughley talked about it, where it's like, I got one move, I got one trick for my community, for my culture, right? And so I look at that as really, once again, on the self-awareness side, but also the strategic side of branding yourself. Don't box me into just what I look like. If I'm trying to reach global masses, if I'm trying to always sell out, I can't just speak to one type. I gotta speak to all, especially if I'm trying to get to arenas and stadiums and that whole nine. I think it also depends on the goals. Like, how big do you want this to be, right? And understanding that there will have to be that openness and that crossover that has to happen if you do. So those are some of the lessons that I learned from that Netflix special. I really liked it. I do wish they did play a little bit of the jokes, not all of it clearly, because I feel like that we would be there forever, but just a little bit here and there. I think that would have been really dope. But I do appreciate the behind the scenes, the intentionality of documenting. Hey, we're going to do this together. Let's now document that. That's just a different, I think that's just almost a new norm when we're talking about anything that we create that is of the masses. Like, let's do some behind the scenes. The second we start talking about it, the second that it's an idea and we all agree to it, let's get some cameras on it. Let's document the process and see what it can turn out. So.
Yeah. I think there might have been some business agreement that led to that decision, by the way, because what I noticed was Chris Rock has his own Netflix special that is what looks like, at least based on the outfit that I saw him wearing, it was the same exact outfit he had on stage when Kevin Hart gave him the GOAT at one of the shows. So it looks like he has that as his own special, and then Kevin Hart is selling his, I think I saw it where you can rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime. So it looks like they just did something separately, although they were on the same stage. And then there was that behind the scenes that was done jointly. So it looks like a business thing. That's what I'm just making of it. Because I started to watch Chris Rock's, the comedy portion of I guess his stand-up portion. I started to watch that on Netflix the other night because the same thing happened to me. I ran into that. I'm like, oh wait, let me fast forward this because the intro's taking a little long. I know Kevin Hart is known for having some pretty long intros. So I was like, oh, this is just behind the scenes dialogue all the way through. But I did like the part, you seen the part where Kevin Hart walks into Chris Rock's locker room and he sees all these note cards.
Yes.
And he's like, this is how I pick my jokes. And it just showed that real introvert, extrovert dynamic. And then Kevin Hart walked out like, dang, look like I got some work to do because I don't go about it like this at all. So that was cool to see too.
Yeah, no, that process, and for those people who haven't seen the special, go see it. It's really dope. But that process of looking at it and how he said, if today I may want what we started in the beginning to go in at the end and change up the middle and add Trump into it because Trump is trending. I think that's understanding where we are in the world, who's your audience, and customizing it to that particular day, that particular event. So I think that's a whole nother level of mastery that we gotta kind of just take note. So, but yeah, that was a good special. But let's get into the creator of the week. And this week, we are going to be talking about Tia Rivera. When I say choreographer, speaker, coach, but her social media shows it all. And there's this clip that has been living rent-free in my mind, on my feed, and now I'm seeing everybody share it. And now all her content is coming up. You may have seen it, you may have not, but here it is.
You don't need motivation. Nobody needs motivation. You need to be inspired. Yeah. There's a difference. Motivation is external, it wears off. Motivation is on the outside, inspiration's on the inside. When you're motivated, you do something for 5 minutes. When you're inspired, you do something for a lifetime.
Right.
I don't need you to be motivated to work on your goals. I need you to be inspired.
Yeah.
That's the secret, is that you really don't need motivation to get it done. And the problem is that we think that we need to be motivated. Baby, half the time your girl's not motivated to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm inspired. I don't need you to be motivated and like, I need to have the perfect setting. I need to play some lo-fi hip hop and I'm gonna light a candle. I'm gonna spray my incense. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just need to be inspired to change.
Yeah.
And inspired to grow. And sometimes, I'm gonna be honest with you, my biggest inspiration has come from me just feeling like I'm sick and tired of my own shit. Like, that's what you need, not motivation. You don't need motivation. You don't need to wake up and listen to, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to bring it, then you'll be successful. Now, granted, does it help on days where I'm like not feeling as great? Sure. But do not feel the need for motivation. Feel the need for inspiration.
So first off, I didn't even see that whole clip. So when she said that bar, I was like, "Oh snap! Wait, hold on!"
Right. Right.
I only, you know me. I see the first part, I get the point, and then I go on to it. I'm like, "Yo, that's fire! Play that!" You know. And then I share it to my stories, and they only play that first part, and it's like, "All right, great, share that." Didn't hear that last part. No shade to anybody. I apologize if that came off in a shady way, but her content continues to show. But what I love about her is that even though she's known for her dancing, she just doesn't show that side, right? You bring people into your brand based off your expertise, but then you show all these different sides, and you'll be surprised that all those different sides other people like too, and it will attract a different type of audience. And now who you are is really being represented in a holistic way. So I really appreciate her showing just more than her expertise and really breaking out and saying what she said. I had to think about it. Like, it's okay. Inspiration is more internal. How do you? Okay. So I had to break that down a little bit more. But shout out to her. Shout out to the new creator of the week. Her content's fire. You can find her everywhere. I am Tia Rivera. Go check her out. Have you seen, heard, or anything of this creator of the week?
No, man, this was my first time. I was digging it up until the last part of that. I was just like, "Oh, I'm with you," and I was like, "Oh,
I was like, wait.
Damn, nah, you
didn't have to get so specific with the quote.
Yeah,
you were good.
I'm like, you could have said anything else. You hit enemy territory with that, Tia. I was feeling you. You looked like a Bronx girl. You had the New York hat on. Fire message though. But no, I haven't seen her stuff.
Go check it out. She's dope. She's dope. But let's get into this week's meat and potatoes. You know what I mean? Meat and potatoes. So whether you're starting a new year, a new quarter, a new week, a new day, to be successful, you need a plan. You need a strategy to get from point A to point B. Now, your point A to point B may be $1 to $1 million. Your point A to point B may be 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers. Now, strategy, of course, is a buzzword. that gets talked about, but is it really understood and executed on? So today, we're going to talk about our own strategies to grow our brand and business going into this new season. And of course, we are talking about the how. So, Moose, new season, right? Depending on when you guys are listening to this. I would love your take on how are you approaching the strategy side of growing your brand and business.
Yeah, this has been one of the ones that I feel so good about because I've had way more time, and I think I'm probably my second or third time saying that I've had way more time to sit and plan around what's happened, what do we need to do next year. So I feel really excited about 2024 for that reason. I'm like, I feel like low key, we're gonna have about 13 or 14 months in 2024 instead of 12 months just because of how early we started on getting ready for the year, right? But one of the main adjustments that I'm leading going into 2024, because I've had so much time to plan, I know more or less what the entire year should look like, but I'm not stuck with that plan because I know things will change. For the most part, I'm really banking on the first 6 months. But what I'm doing differently, Nix, and I really think this is a how that a lot of people can adopt, is I'm focusing on one big goal per quarter. So instead of going into the year saying, hey, I want this my goal, I want this my goal, I got this my goal, I got that my goal, just really focusing down and saying, what could be the main thing that I lead off with Q1? And yes, I'm going to naturally have other side projects or other things that I have to work on because maybe you're a one-man business or a one-woman business or a solopreneur or whatever the case may be. You have other responsibilities. You're balancing a 9-to-5 next to the building of your brand or your business on the side as well. Whichever the circumstance may be, you're going to have other things. But because of that reason, it actually helps to have to just focus on one thing instead of trying to balance or get momentum on 3 or 4 different major projects. So that's one of the things that I'm leading off the top of the year with. And it helps to have the whole year outlined because you know you're committed to the rest of those projects. You're not leaving anything abandoned. I think sometimes when we are starting off a new year, we have this energy, we have this excitement, this enthusiasm, and so we feel the need to utilize that energy to do a lot of different things because maybe we're afraid that we won't get to it, or we're gonna be tired, or we won't have the same level of inspiration, Tia, right? Tia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we won't have the same level of inspiration after the first quarter or whatever the case may be, and so we end up trying to juggle more than one thing. But a lot of stuff gets abandoned halfway. A lot of things are incomplete. You don't put enough focus or energy on one thing to drive it across the finish line. So for us this year, or going into the new year, I should say, the main objective from a goal setting standpoint is to have mapped out a good amount of the year. So now we can focus on one main goal per quarter, like one main objective. And then the daily operation and stuff, of course, is going to naturally continue, but I think that is going to be huge for us. So for us in Q1, the big focus is conversion rates. It's just the only thing we're focused on, right? Because we've identified after doing so many, analyzing and looking at numbers and trying to figure out what's what and why are things happening, we've realized that if we can improve in this category, literally, if nothing changes, if we don't get no more new leads, if we don't get no more new customers, if everything were to just stay the same, but we can improve our conversion rates, that alone will boost our business. So that's the one part that has not really been unlocked. So going into Q1, that's going to be the focal point. It's like, hey, let's really unlock this conversion piece so that we can really click and make it happen the rest of the way.
So you have pretty much 4 major goals, right?
Yeah.
With that first one, right, do you break it down even further? Is it just like, here's the main goal, but is there things like in January, February, March, or however the quarter is broken up, like, do you have those things to then go to it, or is it just the main thing?
Yeah, so this is a combination, and I'll give you kind of the resources that helped us to put this together, or at least think about it this way. There's a book called The 12-Week Year. Shout out to Coach Ash for putting me onto that. And then there's another book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. All right. And I've definitely talked about the second one a lot more on here. But essentially, the model for this approach is to identify the goal, but to no longer make that your goal. Like, that's just the thing that you're setting out for on day one. Maybe you want to put it up on the wall somewhere, you know that's what you're working toward, but that's not really the goal. In most instances, there is the activity that produces the goal, right? And that becomes the goal on a daily basis. It's looking at, what is the thing that I can do? So like literally, one of the people I met with today, his was a lot easier because we were able to get down to data. So he has a goal of getting to 10 cases per month, right? And I'll just use it loosely so I don't give too much of his information away. Yeah. So we were able to reverse it all the way up and say, all right, how many leads need to come in for you to have the opportunity to schedule this many consultations, which, giving the 50% show rate, half of the consultations scheduled will then show up, and then the 20% closing rate will give you, like, what does that number need to be to give you 10, right? And so we identified 100 new leads. You're gonna schedule 50 consults, of which, or maybe it might've been 100 scheduled to get 50 consults to show. At a 20% closing rate, you get 10 cases a month, right? So now the daily goal becomes, hey, we need to dedicate our resources to schedule 100 consults a month. That's 25 per week. That's 5 a day. Yeah. You know, like, so from a data standpoint, if you can get your goals to be like that, that's super easy. And I know to some that can be boring, but from a data-driven standpoint, that's the easiest way to do it. So it does become flexible in that sense to say, I have my January goal that will drive, et cetera. So it just depends on the goal, essentially.
What made you reach to this type of strategy? Meaning, like, what did you do in the past that maybe didn't necessarily work out right to where now you're saying, you know what, we're going to break this down into 4 things, which gives us a whole scope of the year, not too married to it, because understand that, you know what, things change, it's okay. But now we have like a holistic look of the year. Here's what we're doing for this particular quarter. Like, what happened to get to that kind of strategy?
Yeah, it was seeing a lot of projects getting abandoned in the middle months of the year and in the summer months of the year.
Okay.
So May, June.
Yeah.
And then July, August, or sometimes April, May, I should say. Yeah. And then July, August. That's when people are summertime, weather's changing. Oh, I'm tired. I just want to. So it happens to all of us, right? Where that shift, and then you look back at the end of the year, you're doing your evaluation, like, yo, what happened to this? This was a big initiative. We didn't really do anything with that. Oh yeah. So at the end of the day, when you really lock in, you realize that for the most part, there are 4, and at least for us, a couple of main projects that contribute the greatest amount of growth in what you're doing anyway. So why not just make that your initiative from the start and practice the discipline to stay true to getting one of them done? Now, here's what I realized too, Nix. When you focus on one goal for 90 days, especially if it's a big goal, and that could be a reasonable time frame for it, but it's not enough to finish it completely. It's a lot easier to manage a large initiative that is 90% of the way done while you're working on a second initiative than it is to work on 2 goals that are at 0% completion. So it's like, oh, okay, Q1, I got these 2 initiatives. I'm starting off on these 2 initiatives. Both of them are at 0. So now we have to flex the entire team, the resources, everything we have available to us to get 2 projects off the ground and to completion.
Right.
rather than saying, no, let's run with this one. Let's just every day focusing on this in the midst of the operations, right? Because, and I put emphasis on operations because every business, every brand has daily contributions that they need to do just to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you're adding one new initiative that you want to build or incorporate. So that makes more sense, in my opinion, than having to distribute your energy amongst so many different things and everyone's scattered and it's like 20% of the way done, or, you know, these really short places. So that's been the main reason why it's like just not seeing enough get done, a lot of abandoned things halfway through. And when you look at it at the end of the day, it's really 3 or 4 things that contribute the most anyway. So why not just focus on 3 to 4 things from the beginning and dedicate all your energy to it?
I'm actually going to take it a little bit back. He jumped right into, already having the game plan, already have the strategy. I'm gonna break it down more into finding the time to strategize. I think as business owners to creators or creators going into business owners, we are so involved, sometimes so into the business side, into the creating side, that we don't necessarily set time to strategize. One of the things that I do, especially at the end of the year, being the creator / business owner, is put my stuff on rerun. So what do I mean by this? I look at TV shows and I see how after a certain season, they are playing their shows, the old ones, over and over again, right? This is in the time frame where they're planning out the next season, recording the next season, but that doesn't necessarily mean their show is out of sight, out of mind. They still stay on the top of the mind by running reruns. So at the end of the year, for me, I have this best of kind of challenge, meaning for the month of December, I'm only replaying some of the best content that I've done. So I'm repurposing. I'm literally taking the same video, the same post, the same captions, putting best of whatever the year is in front of that and posting that. Why? Because I don't want to necessarily, from a creator standpoint, want to be concerned with creating content. I need time to strategize what's going to be the new thing. Strategize what is the new year, the new quarter is going to look like. What are the new products, if anything, any products are going to come out? What are the different revenue streams? What are the different brand awareness strategies? How are we keeping audience retention? I have to think of that, but with time. Like, I can't just say, okay, let's spend an hour a day. That's for your regular stuff. I think that's more of to maintain throughout the year. But are you dedicating a couple of days? Are you dedicating a couple of weeks of really being intentional with this new move, right? And the new move is literally like the new year. So for me, is finding the time to strategize. Some people need to go to a whole new city, state, country to brainstorm and to strategize. Some people need to be around people to do that. Some people, like Moose, just need the whiteboard and go to town with it. Like, give me my space. Whoever needs to be involved, cool. But this whiteboard is coming out, this Sharpie, and we're good, right? But being intentional with finding the time to strategize is going to help the strategy, right? You are going to think with a clear mind instead of, okay, well, right after this, I got to do this. And right after this, I got to do that. I got to, like, you're not really going, by you not finding time to strategize, you're not going into your new season new. You're going in the same way, but trying to tweak certain things. And that's a difference. You know what I mean? So finding the time is important. What you got, Moose?
What's your frequency on that? Because, I remember we talked about it briefly and said, hey, I actually like this advice that you gave me. You said, hey, create a time for it on the schedule, whether that's once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, but block that time where you're just in research mode.
Yeah.
So are there any segments or specific things that you're doing under the strategy component? Like, is research a part of strategy? Is, evaluation, like evaluating what you've done? Like, everyone has their own formula.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you for yours. Yeah.
For me, it's always going back on what has worked, what hasn't. That's going to be one of the very first things. I don't believe always going into a new season just flat out just all new. There are some things that, and it'll kind of go into my second one later on, but there are some things that we do, it's fire, and then we forget about it. And without the time to really look at what you've done and see, oh snap, this was good, or we just didn't put enough energy on that. Without that time, we would have never really see that, and then we're just going to get in the habit of creating new things. From a brand standpoint, that's bad because you never allow the person to really to recognize that, to understand that, to really see the impact and the transformation that this particular thing is going to do, because you're on to the next one so much. I've been a victim of that. I've been guilty of that. And now it's more of, for me, finding that part. Also going through, because I do spend time, whether it's a weekly or a daily situation of ideation and research, to then go back. Shout out to Notion AI that allows you to kind of just ask your database that you've created, hey, what are some ideas that I've done throughout the year? What are some, based off this idea, what is the research that I've done? But with that, going and looking at some of the ideas and some of the research I've already done and saying, is this the season to do these things? Because I do believe all the ideas that you're given is needed to be executed, just not necessarily executed at that time. So you may want to find during your strategy session, here are all the ideas we have. Which one are we going to focus on coming into this new season, right? In your case, when we're talking about the different quarters, then are we planning out quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 with these different types of ideas that will support the main goal, right? So between looking back and looking at the already there ideas, and then there's a building phase of, does something come up now that you know these two pieces of information? Is leaving that part of aha moments. Now I can see the connections, and boom, that's kind of the 3 phases that I go when I'm doing this.
That's good. I like that.
Yay. What you got on your strategy?
So this next one is in preparation for what we feel is going to be different in the market or just the economy at large, based on everything that's changing in the world, right? With the rise of AI, I don't see that slowing down. I'm sure you feel similar to it in the new year. It's only going to go crazier. There is less people just banking on standard information and looking for specialized information. That's a key part of it. Specialized information over standard information, really going through that specificity, right? And more people ready to just cut the fluff and get down to business. That is another part of the formula. So it's what we've identified it as giving people the space to do the work and implement what they're learning. That's a testament to the fact that it works, right? Because if it's taught, and it's the person's responsibility to essentially build it on their own, it gives a little bit of, let's say, maybe it frees us of the responsibility, because if it doesn't work exactly to the T, we can come back and say, well, let me review your work. Like your math teacher would say, let me show your work. Oh, okay, no, you did this wrong. That's why you made the mistake. I didn't teach it to you wrong, kind of thing. But the difference here is we're saying, no, let's create the space and actually do the work together. So the implementation is going to be partnered, right? So those are some sub-bullet points of this main concept, but essentially I just narrow it down to a 10-to-1 value ratio. So 10 times the price delivered in value by implementing some of these concepts: specific knowledge, cutting to the fluff, getting down to business, and creating the space to do the work and partner in the creation of the things that we're teaching, right? So these biz dev concepts, the integration of program development, customer acquisition, all this stuff. It's like, no, let's do it together now. We're gonna partner with in the process. So that's another big thing that I and we as a group are gonna be focused on to stay competitive. Essentially what I think is going to be changing in the space next year, but also to create a nice challenge for ourselves, because I think it sometimes can become very easy to stick on what has always worked and do it over and over and over and over again until it doesn't work anymore. And that's when everyone panics, like, oh shoot, it's not working. It's been like this for 5 years. What do we do now? And so I'm going into it because one of the things I did before going into goal setting, shout out to Ashlyn for this, but she gave us a sheet that helped us break down what were the highlights and our lessons from each month. And the guide she gave us said, look at your calendar to see what you committed to. Well, one of the things I just did randomly, it wasn't even planned. I started to look through my photos and see what I documented as well, or like what I created in the process. And so going through that, I started to see the evolution of what worked well and what didn't work well, I guess essentially what you said. But more specifically, I realized that I can't bank on what worked last year will work this year. And that was a big, big takeaway. I was like, man, we caught ourselves, like we almost slipped, just running the same play, rinse, wash, repeat. And luckily, for some reason, I can't even tell you what contributed to it. It was like, oh, well, what about this? And that led a whole streak of innovation that I'm now going into it saying, all right, yes, that's gonna be what we're doing, but in the midst of that, really focusing on a super duper value exchange with the help of those concepts in between.
So with that, going into the season, what is some indicators that you're going to be looking for that is like, oh, hold on, we may want to try this, or we may want to switch this up? Like, is there some major indicators that you have in mind?
So that's where they build off of each other with the conversion rates, right? Like fixing and locking in on that, the spillover is going to be able to see that. So I say we a lot, and I don't use terms or names, but for those who don't know, I'm involved in extreme execution and the flight assessment component of things. And so it's essentially a training and development company, right? That's how we utilize or categorize our services as a company or as a department. And I lock in specifically on the conversion because that allows us to fulfill and deliver at a higher level. So the more people we can take through that journey and they show up, and that's the thing that we're surprised by. Like, this might be slightly off topic, but it's crazy to think about how many people will pay for things and not use them. And so now yes. We're just like, hey, yes. People are buying. We just want to make sure we're doing a better job of maybe educating them on all the resources and benefits that come with what they're paying for so that they can just use them. And if we do that, the spillover is good enough to keep us in a good place.
That's good. I like that. For me, I think my second one, kind of continuing what we were talking about, which is prioritizing the products and services before creating new ones. And what do I mean by that? Going back to, we tend to create stuff. I'm not going to say we. I'm not even going to blame it on y'all, right? I tend to create, as being the creative mind that I am, I create all these different products and services. And the new idea I get, the new thing that we created right now, it's crazy. Shout out to Deeper Than the Brand. We just finished the mastermind and we're gearing up to go to Puerto Rico, right? We're gearing up to do a mastermind out there. Now, setting that up of how do we make sure the people are ready for that particular mastermind, where some people will literally just sell, okay, here's the price to get into the mastermind, go ahead, right? We're thinking more of the prep work. What is the program, what is the system that we can make sure that until that May situation, that you are fully prepared when it comes to the branding side, the personal development side, the creation side. How are we making sure that you are there? So it's not that we're just there to be in a really nice location, even though that is true, and we're gonna have bread, but also that we are ready to work. Now, we were thinking, okay, let's create just a 90-day program. And now I'm like, well, shoot, we have a mastermind level that if we was to just restructure, rebrand, then it would make sense instead of let's create something new, because then the confusion of, okay, well, I was already in this. Does this apply still? Do I need, and then when you are looking at stuff that you've already have, then you can eliminate some of the new questions that are coming. But also now it allows people to recognize and understand what you have done, right? Sometimes we create new things in order to make people understand it a little bit better. Well, maybe that was too complicated. Maybe that one was too simple. Maybe if we created this and we say it in this kind of way and trigger it in this way and maybe make this the audience, when really it's normally a messaging problem, normally a systems problem, normally being able to consistently show up on it because we think we say it a couple of times and they understand it. No, are we educating our audience, our target audience, our target clientele with it over and over again for them to truly be educated on it? So prioritizing and identifying, here are some of the products and services that we have. Which ones are we going to put more energy on before creating something new, or do we have to create something new, right? And being intentional with that. So they're not saying that there are not going to be any new things that come out for the new season, but for me, I'm going to really look at the inventory that we have and really put extra energy on our mastermind level, put extra energy on our membership level, which is the experience, put extra energy on those lead magnets, those entryways, to really define overall the major goal, which is deeper than the brand and you understanding that particular experience. So for me, part of the strategy is going to be doubling down and putting more respect on the creations that are already there.
Yeah. No, as I was listening to you say that, when you said sometimes it makes sense to just restructure what's already there instead of build something new, which I think a lot of times it just ends up competing with what we already have.
Yes.
So we think we're giving another alternative or option to our audience, when in reality, we're just making it more difficult for them to decide, because now they're like, man, I want this and I don't even know which one to do now.
Yeah.
And so you're creating a competing offer rather than a complementing offer, which is what we think we're doing. So that's good. How'd you come to that realization? Was there, I mean, I know you spoke about the deeper than the brand, but was there any loss? Like, did you experience any setback, or was that something you caught on to proactively? Like,
no,
let's
proactively.
Not even...
Like we're
good.
literally, you know, because the process that we're going through is we get people's feedback of what exactly they need. I'm done assuming I know my audience, right? Mm-hmm. So we've gathered data asking specific questions of what they would want in order to be ready for the mastermind, right? And looking at that and figuring out, this is where we go back to, okay, we just did this mastermind. Let's talk about that process, right? That process was you get access to the mastermind, you buy into the mastermind, but until the day of the mastermind, you're in these monthly calls. That's our mastermind level that we called MetaSuite, right? You're in these monthly calls to get prepared for the mastermind that had just happened.
Nice.
We already did that, but when we heard the new information, we were like, oh, we're going to make a 90-day program and this, that, and that. And I was like, wait, we already did something similar. Now, let's just structure it better. Let's make it very clear that, you know what, this is the new pre-reg. This is, if you miss a call, you're going to be lost, right? Mm-hmm. And not creating a new program, just, that worked. But let's be more intentional with that, because we weren't necessarily intentional. We did okay, you want the mastermind, so you get access to this, and then realize by them having access to those things, it actually helped out. And so now, okay, let's just double down on it. So it's
that's
proactive.
Good. That's good. Yeah, that's confirmation for me on some things I was thinking about, because you know, you ever get cold feet on something like, okay, I know I did this, it worked, but should I do it? Like I was literally on that realm right now, but no, that's great intel.
Yeah, no, and not being afraid to rebrand it, right? We had, for example, we called it MetaSuite because we did it during the pandemic, right? So we were in the Oculus for the mastermind level, something super dope. But now that people are outside, we're not necessarily in the Oculus anymore. So we got to rebrand that. Now we're attracting another audience, not another audience, but the intended audience. You know how sometimes you create something, you attract, you have like the target audience in your head, but who you attract at first is like, okay, you're there, but you're not and
ready.
Now that we've grown them to be the target audience, now the new people that are coming in are already coming in as the ideal target audience. So when you build something, you're going to sometimes not necessarily get the ideal client right then and there, but not to fret, to then grow them into that. So that's what we have done. But now, as we've done that, and now that they are showcasing who they are, now we're attracting the right people.
Yeah, it's crazy when you're close to, like when you're too close to what you're doing, you can overlook some of the most obvious things. Like, I'm just listening to you talk about MetaSuite, and I said, oh, that's right. That happened in 2020. Metaverse was going to be the wave of the future. People were preparing for that to be eternity.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's a completely different dynamic. So something as simple as pushing that to be the product name in a time in which people are not as tied to the idea of the metaverse, it could not work, not because the system or the program itself is not effective. It's just people are just not connecting with metaverse. It's not attractive to them, or MetaSuite in that sense. So yeah, that's a really good point too.
Yay. What's your last one?
So this one, and I'm kind of cheating a little bit because it's something that I'm working off of, but I saw your notes and I was like, man, I think this might make for a nice little different side of the conversation, right? But for this one, I've seen some great progress in 2023 or this year doing it this way. And so next year, I want to do more of it. And what this is, I'm calling this key partners or partnerships for specific projects. So rather than going for, and I'm gonna let you share, your concept, I'm actually thinking about, no, I don't want a group of people to work on everything that we're doing as a unit. I want to, and I guess it's different when you have more flexibility, maybe in a leadership role, because you can work on different things. But I want to be able to partner with people who I feel, for whatever reason, based on their soft skills, their hard skills, their experience, their availability and commitment, because quite honestly, we have to say that that's one of those things that makes a difference, right? How available someone makes themselves or how committed they are to the project, mission, or business, or even brand that you're working on, that makes a significant difference in what you can possibly achieve, because you want two people running together with at least somewhat of a similar commitment to it. They have the same desire, they're clear on the goal. And so I noticed that sometimes it can be difficult to recruit an entire team to agree on multiple projects. And so sometimes you're having to pull a little bit and say, come on, I know you're more excited about that one, but this is what we're working on now too. This is important. Get your excitement over here. So I said to myself, man, I'm done trying to force people to see the vision. I'm just gonna go with the ones who already see it, in a sense, and just work with small groups. I always die laughing at your reaction sometimes, but small groups or partnerships for specific projects, and that's all that they. I'll be responsible for the multiples, right? But not bringing the entire group to do all of it with me. So that's one of the main adjustments that I'm making going into 24. It's like, hey, I don't know if these people, sometimes some of them may need to be contractors, some of them may need to be whatever it is, but after testing it in 23, I probably started in May. We created a board of advisors or co-host for the Extreme Execution Group, and the improvement that happened as a result of that, I was like, okay, this should be done elsewhere. So I tried it in a few other places. I'm convinced 2024, it's the way of key partners and partnerships for specific projects, not bring the whole team.
I'm not mad at that. I like.
Did I just convince you live on the pod real quick?
No. So first off, I was already semi doing that, but it's weird because what was happening with my situation was I was creating different groups for different projects, but then found a group that regardless of the project, everybody sees everything on the same page.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
But also respecting those who don't necessarily have the same energy for these different types of projects, right? What I didn't necessarily like doing of that, right? Even though like for you were like, I'm responsible for the whole thing, right? But these different projects, you still have to catch the other groups up with everything that is happening. And that's the part that kind of frustrated me a little bit, because I was like, well, if you were part of it, you would understand what is happening instead of me forever catching you up. So not only do I have to do this meeting, I have to do this meeting of the catching up, and then I have to do this meeting to make sure everybody, it's very annoying. But I've been very blessed lately to and this was a matter of a couple of years now, where it started with maybe one or two people seeing this particular project, to then get another person, and then now the whole thing is like, oh no, we see the whole vision for everything. So I want to be a part of all of these different things. Clearly, I'm going to be not necessarily more excited, but I'll have more skills on one part or the other. But
right.
That doesn't necessarily mean I want completely out of all those things. Because if there's something that I can do for the team, I would love to do that. I've been very blessed with that group right now, which is so relieving. However, that if you hear that, like, yeah, that's what I need, I promise you, you're going to go through a lot more heartaches than that. Because when I tell you, this took me years, and a lot of heartache and a lot of stress. Okay. But to kind of go with what you were saying, as far as like the key partnerships and things like that, I think for me is going to be just understanding who you need on the team. And if it is a team member or a contractor, right? And being really serious with that. Going into the new season, the new year, new quarter, whenever you're listening to this, really mapping out, okay, I need this player. Okay, cool. Being serious about that. Now, is this a key player, like you are keeping them on the team? This is going to be somebody that you pay on a regular, or is this going to be a contractor, project-based situation, right? A good example that a lot of people say on a regular is like, yo, I need a graphic designer. Do you need the graphic designer on your team, or do you really just need to contract that out when there's a project? And being realistic with that, but also writing that down, because that is something that you need to take you to the next level. But do you know the people you need to do that? Shout out to Connie, because Connie is a beast when it comes to org charts. When you have a vision, okay, let's break down all the people you're going to need. And this is going to be a 5 to 10 year, 20 year, however you want to go about it, span of getting all the pieces in place to fill this org chart. You're going to see an org chart and you're going to be like, that's a lot of people. Oh my God, this is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Still, my goal is not necessarily to have a large team. I want to have a resourceful team, right? I want to have a team that does take advantage of the technology with AI, take advantage of different contractors in that whole nine, and to be so strong that they feel as if they are a team of 40. So that's going to be my goal, but intentional with understanding what their limits are, meaning not giving them so much outside of their realm, or even inside of their realm, not even giving them so much inside of their realm, but making sure they are fully resourceful to where even with a push of a button, they feel as if they are 4 or 5 people, even though you're not putting 4 or 5 people's responsibilities on them. So for me, it's definitely going to be understanding who do you need on your team and writing that out and making sure that's a goal, not saying, I need somebody to duplicate, like I need to duplicate myself. And you never do. Like, you just never do, because you never made it a plan. You never put it part of your strategy. You never wrote it out. And so it, even from a simple standpoint, like, I just need a copywriter. I need to hire a coach real quick in Q2. I need, like, those are still part of your team. Now they're not they're not the team, but they are key players for that particular season. You're going to have rotation with your team, right? Some are going to never rotate. They may be the MVPs and all that great stuff. Some are there to just make sure that the key players get some rest. So understanding what you need, and not being afraid to put that part of your plan, write that out and say, I'm going to get this person at this time, because are you budgeting for that? Or are you just saying you want it?
Yeah. So critical. Yeah, that part of the conversation today, and it was really good practice, and even very relevant to what you just said, was a lot of times we start with, these goals that we want to achieve, and we think that when the calendar turns over, we're automatically going to grow to the level that allows us to produce the goal from day one.
Yeah.
Like, no. You can't go from 1 to 10 just because the calendar switched from December 31st to January 1st, and this new energy of yours is going to allow you to do that. It doesn't happen. And so literally at certain metrics on the way to 10, there were checkpoints to say, there's gonna be a systems change here. There's gonna be a talent upgrade here, because you can't continue to grow or achieve that goal with this current equation. It's just not possible. Something has to improve. Either you're gonna have to cut down on time. So yeah, just to add into what you're saying there, that's critical. Like, different benchmarks have to be set up ahead of time, so that on the way there, it's just, this triggers. Okay, I reached this benchmark. This benchmark triggers the hiring of this specific caliber. I know what they need to look like, and this is what we're gonna do. So yeah.
Facts. So people, in your new season, whether new year, new week, new day, come with a strategy. Spend time, know your team, know your numbers, plan out the year, quarterly, go through a whiteboard session, whatever you may need in order to set yourself up for success. Without a plan, without a strategy, that is not possible without stress. I will say that. You can go through it.
I was gonna say efficiently.
Right. There's more politically correct, efficiently, and all that great stuff. I'm going to say without stress. Okay. You go in a spontaneous way. I'm going to live the way that I live, and I'm going to be led by the Spirit. Praise God. You're going to be stressed, or as we always like to refer, your team is going to be stressed. So, plan it out, strategize. And because you deserve that. And let's go to the question of the week. Before we do the question of the week, are you in our Patreon? Are you in our Patreon? We just launched the Patreon. Okay. After show is there, audio, video. We're going to start doing polls and voting power, so you could be able to produce the Nicky and Moose show, after show. Everything about it is going to be to you. So, and we're going to shout out some of our top tier Patreon level pretty much at the end of the show. So if you want part of that shout out, if you want the exclusive content, go to our Patreon. But let me get into the question of the week, which of course is always sponsored by Flight Assessment, flightassessment.com. Discover your personal superpower. Learn how to use your superpower to become a master communicator, strengthen all your relationships, and develop the self-awareness you need to fulfill your highest potential. That's at flightassessment.com. Now, I'm on this type of time, so I want to ask this question. Automation versus personal touch. Should brands lean more towards automation in their processes or maintain a personal touch in customer interactions going into the new year? Moose?
Yeah, I'm going to have to, I know what I should say, but I can't help but say still personal touch, right? I think that the automation or the integration of automations is going to kick in at a specific multiplier that if you don't gather the experience necessary through your personal touch, you won't really have the information at hand to know what the automation should look like, what it should feel like, right? I do believe that the integrations, the tech, whatever, it's available to us to make it still rather compelling, that it won't feel so robotic. But there's certain things that you know by interacting with your people, your audience, your customers, your clients. You only gather that or know it by spending time. I don't want to say the trenches, because I don't think that hard work needs to be, or you don't need to work as hard on every single thing anymore to gather the information necessary. But with enough intentionality, you should know, like, what is going to be the essence of my communication with my community, audience, clients, etc. Right? You're establishing a culture, a common language, or a code that you can utilize throughout that. But if you don't spend time to develop it, what exactly are you automating? So for me, I will say, and of course there are maybe automate reminders. I guess automating that part is an easy thing to do. But I'm talking specifically for engagements, interactions that allow you to get data around how specific journeys need to go, what the culture is. Infusing that experience into the communication can only be done at first through personal touch before you automate. So that's my personal belief, is to always do the work, to learn, and then automate after you've had that knowledge.
I like that. I'm gonna go a different route, because customer interaction, and I'm just going based off how I received it. I'm instantly thinking of like customer support, right?
Okay.
But also, to a sense, a little bit of even with your content. So lately, I have, when I'm on my social media, especially on my Instagram, if somebody needs a certain link, a certain tool, I have a certain automation that goes into their DM and sends it to them. When I have a new YouTube video, I have an automation that when there's a new YouTube video, it automatically sends a broadcast message to those people. Now, the responses that they get back, then they goes more of in a personal touch, right? Now, when I'm thinking about customer service, when somebody enters into Deeper Than the Brand, enters my newsletter, there is a certain automation that needs to be triggered so they don't necessarily have to sit and wait for my interaction with them, right? Because I'm thinking now of, okay, how do I set myself up for the future? Not do I have time right now to interact with everybody, but in those days and in those times that I am out and about or doing other things, how do I always make sure, these are my 2 words for 2024, is how do I make sure that people feel seen and heard? And so the automations in the beginning is going to be very crucial for just the introduction, just for that first part, right? Now, once that is done, we can get more in a personal side, because even when you think about from those who have more of an educational brand, or even any type of brand, there's levels to get access to you. And so even with that, that's not saying you're not reachable. There isn't an interaction. You may be level 2, you may level 3 of when they interact with you. But I do believe to have a quick response to make sure there is something, because you've ever bought something and it's like you don't get the receipt, you don't get no type of email, you're like, hold on,
no confirmation,
what's happening? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like that leaves people, but that doesn't necessarily mean I wasn't going to hit you up like, yo, I saw you bought it, this is fire. You're like, yo, where's my stuff, right? So even that, like, there just has to be a basic level of automation to make sure the person feels seen and heard. And so that will be more my thing. Automation to a certain level, to then turn into a personal side. But I do believe automation first before personal.
Yeah, I agree on the reminders for sure. I think the reminders, receipts, all that stuff is hella important. So I'm with you on that.
Big facts. Now, shout out to our Patreons, our Creator Av people, Katrina, Brittany, Teresa, and Billy. They are part of the Creator Av tier of our Patreon. Like I said, we're about to record the after show, and that's only on our Patreon. Okay, you get the audio side of the episodes and the after show first before it ever releases. You get the video side hours before it actually gets released. We're going to be adding new things coming to this new year. It's going to be a vibe. Go check out our Patreon. It is only $4 a month. That's like 13 cents if you want to break it down a day. It's only 13 cents a day, okay? If you gain value, pretty much you've listened to the end. So you've gained enough value. If we've done anything for you, go head over to our Patreon. We appreciate you. We love you. Go, of course, flightassessment.com, extreme execution. Go do that. Deeper Than the Brand, deeperthanthebrand.com. Go do that. Follow us everywhere at Nicky and Moose. Okay. We're about to reach 18K on YouTube. So go continue to support us on YouTube, support us on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you feel. Threads is popping as well. So go follow us on Threads. And then Moose, final words.
Yeah, I heard this week, man, and I'm not gonna lie, I had it replaying a couple of times, but the message said, if you're tired of being the bigger person, stop hanging out with little people. I'm gonna say that one more time. If you're tired of being the bigger person, stop hanging out with little people. So sometimes, what is repetitious, what keeps happening over and over, that should be a pattern to let you know maybe you need to walk away and just let it be.